Hello, everybody, and welcome again to GBH Amplifies with Alberto Vasallo. Where is Alberto Vasallo? Oh, I am Alberto Vasallo. That's right. Alberto Vasallo here from El Mundo, Boston. And once a month, I'm here to hopefully give voices to folks from our community that usually aren't in front of the cameras or the mic. Although the panel today, I will say, has been, I've seen some of the interviews you have been lately because of what happened. And what I'm referring to is the capture of Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro. It's been the story of the year. It's been a global news story. And today we've invited members of the Venezuelan community to the GBH Studio here to hear their insights. How do they feel? What do they think the future has? And really hear from them their point of view. We've heard from elected leaders, we've heard from the president, we've heard from the Secretary of State, but the voices of the community, of the community, we've even heard more from protesters who, we'll get into that, really do not reflect the Venezuelan community. So this is for all of you to learn out there. Obviously, we're doing this from the Newsfeed Cafe here at the Boston Public Library, which means we have a live studio audience, which, by the way, questions are welcome, warmly welcome. So in a little while, you'll see that beautiful young lady that looks like Olivia Newton-John, Sandra Lopez. Yes, a young Olivia Newton-John. Just go up to her and she'll accommodate you for questions. So without further ado, I'm going to get into first introducing my panel from left to right, and then we're going to get into this real live discussion. Don't feel free to feel passionate, because as you can tell, somebody's already wearing the flag. So yes, absolutely. So I expect a very passionate discussion, and hopefully you will learn something, right? I might make you laugh, but most importantly, I hope that you'll like it as well. So, all right, I'm going to start from my right. So from left to right. So I'd like to welcome my guest, La Doctora Ana Julia Hattar. She's the president of Venezuelan American Association of the United States, also editor of El Planeta, right? You're still working there? You're still competing with me? Okay, good.
Thank you.
And you're back and forth from Washington and Boston, right?
Yes, because I also a member of the board of El Tiempo Latino, the newspaper in Washington, D.C.
Yes, and we're going to get into your travels and how you've kind of been busy with this theme of Venezuela. Okay, to my immediate right, Leonardo Vivas. Leonardo is an expert in international relations, Latin America, but over the years, he has been writing about this for how long now? 26, 27 years?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, at least here in the U.S., 25 years.
Yes. So we're going to get your insights on this. To my left, Maria Alejandra Bastardo. She is the president of Casa Venezuela New England. Casa Venezuela New England, local organization who's mobilized the Venezuelan community, not just for this, but for cultural celebrations. But over the last month, mostly on this political line item. So welcome to the show. Nice attire.
Thank you, Alberto. I really appreciate this invitation today.
No worries. We're going to get it. And then to the far left, a young lady who 4 years ago now, was actually in Venezuela and was very active. Her mother was afraid for her safety, and she decided to send her on a lonely journey to the United States. She ended up in here in Boston. And here's the fun part. 2 years ago, I saw her sing the national anthem in a Red Sox-Yankees game. So just for that, and we won. The Red Sox won, so you gave us good luck.
It was a lucky thing.
So Nare Villarruel, you fled Venezuela. And I'm going to start with you because you're the young one here. Take us through your journey. Why were you sent to the United States at the age of 22?
That's a little different. First, thank you for having me. I'm not in Venezuela ever since 2017, actually. I left Venezuela in 2017, but I wasn't living here. I was living in another country first, and then I came here. But you are right in the part where my mom took me out of Venezuela because we had to escape. I was a protester in the protest against the dictatorship, and they took pictures of me and my sister on the protest, so we had to run away or else we were going to end up in jail. So that's the kind of freedom that Venezuela had back in those days, and there's still some of it right now, which is the main thing that, at least for me, is the important thing to talk about. People that are still there, that doesn't have any freedom, and that even today the repression's still on. So yeah, I'm the lucky one. I'm the lucky one because I was able to get away. But yeah, I'm an immigrant ever since I'm 17 years old. I'm still being an immigrant, and the tough part, I would say that this kind of immigration is the one where you cannot go back to home unless you have like a different government. So yeah, that's where we are.
I want to start with her because she was the one who's lived here. All of you Venezuelans been here, not as long as or been here longer. But I want to get your reaction to when the news broke, because there was different reactions from different quarters, depending on where you watched. If you watch CNN, if you watch Fox, if you talk to your liberal friends, if you talk to your conservative friends, if you talk to your Trumpers, if you talk to your Trump haters, there was just so much going on about Venezuela. I want to ask Venezuelans, what was your reaction? I know you had a really cute comment over there that people were texting you, non-Venezuelans were texting you with one simple question,
Yeah.
right? So Ana, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me again. Yes, well, it was an explosion of joy, I have to say. Everybody was I can't believe this. After 27 years of fighting, of zero rule of law, of no check and balances, of humanitarian crisis that we will talk about, we see that there was a credible threat. The regime never thought that there was a credible threat. And what this did to the regime is said, something can happen, and maybe we're not going to stay here forever like the Cubans. So immediately after, there was a poll in Venezuela in which, according to that poll, which coincides also with a poll made by The Economist, 89% of Venezuelans agreed with the extraction.
Did you hear that? 90% of the Venezuelan people. So, and you got those texts. How did you feel? You've been struggling. I've seen you in the protests. You have been protesting when the elections were stolen, according to you, when you went to the United Nations. You've been fighting this fight to raise awareness for what had been happening in Venezuela. What locally was the reaction here in Boston?
Well, like Ana Julia mentioned, I got a whole bunch of messages, people from everywhere asking, how do you feel about this? I couldn't even believe the question, because since we've been under a dictatorship for 27 years, how would you feel if you see that the main person is taken away and put in jail? Finally, we see some type of justice. Well, on the other hand, I've been an activist locally helping all these migrants from Venezuela. We had almost 9 million Venezuelans, and we can say it's more than that. It's just what ACNUR brings up as, as a number that they have recorded from the different countries where Venezuelans are trying to have some type of legal status. But we had a whole bunch of immigrants coming here from Venezuela, people that were really traumatized, people that were in prison for just not having freedom of speech. People that didn't care not to have clothes, not to have food. They just wanted to be free somehow. So it's been very hard for me to find, that there's no separation right now between the humanitarian topic and, the politics that is involved in, the fact that this administration under President Trump did what other presidents didn't do. I mean, that's the reality. But I really want to say today, and again, I appreciate you giving us this opportunity to express the view from a Venezuelan, not from a paid person out in a corner like we see everywhere. People that can't even speak Spanish, they're talking for Venezuelans. Of course, very disrespectful. But we are very happy It's an immense joy that we have right now to see a murdered, a dictator. We still have them in Venezuela. They're not gone yet. So it's understandable why our main leader is not there yet, Maria Corina Machado. There's a huge reason for that. But it's good to clarify and take all this confusion out there, all this misunderstanding. Oh, Maria Corina is not giving the right spot right now. Oh, the international laws were violated. Okay, please, let's just look at people. Just look at the suffering of people for 27 years, walking through jungles for many, many days, looking for a safe place to be. That's all I really want to tell people.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful. Leonardo, you are an expert in international relations, and you've been writing about this. Could you give our audience just a little perspective on what Venezuelans have been trying to do, or in this case, do it on a more diplomatic level, right? What are the steps that you as a people have gone under before the intervention, right? What had you done, and what had been the reaction of the world? What had been the frustration of Venezuelans, of the Venezuelan community?
Well, first, thank you for the invitation and for inviting me with these beautiful ladies. Look, Venezuela has been suffering this dictatorship for almost 27 years. And every time it's gotten worse. For a part of this time, you didn't have a full dictatorship, but things with Maduro got worse. All he did was try to break down all the institutions in Venezuela. And while this was happening, there was no response from international community. The only organizations that did do an effort were the United Nations Human Rights Council, that they sent a number of missions, and these missions determined what was happening, that many crimes against humanity were happening. And while those things were taking place, you had no response, very little response from the OAS. Look, in July 28, 2024, there was an election. Finally, after so much pressure was put, there was an election, and the opposition at the time, the candidate won by 70 to 30%. It was a landslide. And what did the government do? They said, no way, Maduro won. So that was kind of the last straw of the process. And at that time, when that happened, what did Latin American countries do? Was there any, real pressure that the OAS made to condemn this what happened? No, nothing at all. And when Maduro was extracted, it became kind of the only way. It was the only way to have some pressure exerted against him.
I want to kind of get all your thoughts on this particular topic, and we're going to talk about other topics as well, including the protests, the media, which I want you to chime in, especially since you are in the media, but this kind of dichotomy too, right, of because a lot of people who don't like Trump, they just are not viewing it the same way, right? Some of them have been protesting, some are very, very critical. How do you answer the people who are watching us now who say, yeah, but he broke the law, he did this, he did that. How do you feel, and how do you respond to that type of criticism? We've seen our local leadership here, Markey, Senator Warren, McGovern, come out against this intervention, come out clearly against it. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that they should ask the Venezuelans first. I understand their political view, and they are sort of trying to build for the midterm elections, but we Venezuelans, that we worry about our country, we are happy with this happening, but be clear of this. We are also pressing to have a peaceful and democratic transition as soon as possible, because Venezuelans don't want to be a protectorate of the US either. So everything has to go together, and the fact that we celebrate this move first because we asked them, and where were you? I'm going to ask here, where were you when my brother was kidnapped on the middle of the street in Venezuela and disappeared and put it in isolation for months just because he disagreed in a radio show like this one? Where was the international community? Where were the U.S. senators? Where were the U.S. representatives? Where were the United Nations? I had to go and I had to work to liberate my brother. And let me tell you, every single family that has had a Venezuelan prisoner in these dungeons, because they are not prison, where Maduro is now, is an apartment of luxury compared to where my brother was. It was a dungeon full of cockroaches, no water, no bathroom, okay, and in isolation. So where were all these people? And where were all these people denouncing that our human rights were absolutely violated, constantly violated, every day? 9 million Venezuelans have left Venezuela because there is a human crisis. That is 25% of the population. The human crisis is so huge that it is like in the US, around 80 million people would leave because of human crisis. In Venezuela, 25% of the population has left. And you know why? Because since Maduro was in power, he became in power, the Venezuelan economy dropped 75%. 75. That is twice the drop of the U.S. economy during the Big Depression.
Yep. That's a great way to put it in perspective for those who may not understand and are asking, these very questions. And I want to kind of go through the same one. How do you respond to it? Because I know that you on La Hora Café had a very you had mixed feelings, right? You were one of those who had mixed feelings.
Yeah,
because you were not a Trumpster fan. You weren't that, but you were happy when it happened, and now you were caught into this dichotomy.
Yeah.
I have to say that you were very hard on us. You brought in a communist. Come on, Albert. I mean, the guy was defending communism, with all his passion.
Yeah, we did have a lively discussion on our El Mundo live morning show. I think Sandra was watching that day. I wanted to include different points of views, so I did have a gentleman who was against the intervention, whatever. But it was good because...
Very book-based. He was very book-based.
I wanted to give different opinions. But today, that's why I wanted it to be Venezuelans. I don't want it to be a debate. I wanted you guys to have an unfettered platform for all of those watching us who don't understand, right? Yeah. So you were in that
So first of all, thank you for sharing your story, because I know that it's very hard to talk about that and to talk about freedom. It's a very important topic. So thank you for sharing your part of the story. And on my side, of course, we were super happy the day that happened. My best friend called me, and the only words that he said was, "It's happening." Only that, it's happening. And I told him, please don't joke about this, because it's too hard. Do not joke about this. And he was like, no, it is happening. So it was a very happy news, of course. But at the same time, of course, we have uncertainty. We know that there is bigger ideas and bigger agendas happening at the same time. But at the same time, it's not like we had this line of countries willing to do something for us. And going back to the OAS, when the Venezuelan situation was brought to the OAS, 16 countries were absent. They didn't vote. They didn't want to put an opinion there. So it's like we didn't have many choices. Of course, we're grateful that Trump did this. And of course, we are also concerned about all of the things that is going to be around it. Starting by the way that we are immigrants here. I'm an immigrant in the United States, and as in any other immigrants, we feel concerned, we feel worried. And it is a very hard situation to be, but at the same time, two things can be true. Yeah, two things can be true at the same time. Pardon my broken English. Two things can be true at the same time. And I think that today we live in a very radicalized world where you have to be either white or black or something like that. And I don't think that's true. I think that we need to keep going with critical thinking and being like, yes, this is right. I'm glad that you used the right terminology. You didn't say kidnapped, you didn't say president, because every time that I hear that Venezuelan president was kidnapped, something in me just goes crazy, because he wasn't a president, he was a dictatorship, and he wasn't kidnapped, he was taken, and we are very glad that he was taken, and we are really looking to see the other ones taken as well, because a dictatorship is not only the big person that is in front of it, but it's also the other ones. We need to see Diosdado in jail, we need to see the other ones in jail, we need to see even the Rodriguez in jail, but I also believe that when we talk about this, we know that there's another agendas going on around, but we are also concerned for the things that, as a Venezuelan, concern us. And one of them is political prisoners. I think that my main thing being here is talking about the political prisoners, the people that are still dying in hunger in Venezuela, the people that are still dying in hospitals, because if you go to a hospital in Venezuela, you have nothing but the doctor. Any other thing you have to buy it or try to find in other sites. And it's a very hard situation. So mostly, I think that would be my answer for that. We are very happy, and we also have a lot of uncertainty. We know that this is not something born of altruism, but at the same time, we are glad that happened, because no one else was willing to do anything else, and that is true.
So let's talk about your point of view regarding the economics, right? There are the critics who say, well, Trump only did it because he's only interested in the oil, because it's this, because it's that, because it's only to benefit the United States.
Everyone is interested in the oil.
By the
like
way,
all of the countries were interested in the oil.
Well, first of all, I think it was, I would have preferred that President Trump didn't mention that, because I mean, not even the Venezuelans want to hear that.
Right.
Okay, we want to hear that the United States is helping us because they value democracy, they value freedoms, and they value all the American standard values that, you know, with which they have fought many wars. So the thing about the oil, nobody like that. But the oil, Venezuelan oil, has been able to buy many of the votes in the OAS. And many of the votes in the international community, unfortunately, have helped the dictatorship to buy votes from small countries. So what I hope now, that since the oil is not going to be extracted for the benefit of a dictatorship, but for the benefit of the Venezuelan people, which is what I heard Marco Rubio say, we're fine with that.
Yeah.
As long as it is going to be used for the help of the Venezuelan people. And let me ask just one more thing.
Yes.
Venezuela has been a territory of no law. No law, no property rights, no rule of law. If those things are not built first, if there is no confidence in the rule of law in the future, there is no oil company or no other company that is going to go invest in Venezuela. So the chronology that the government of the U.S. is saying, that first stabilization, then recuperation, and then elections, no. We need to have the democratization of the country first, and we need Venezuelans to be there together with the U.S. and together with the international community to bring confidence and to open the opportunities that a very rich and wonderful country has, like is Venezuela. But we need democracy and freedom that we don't have it now.
Something that I wanted to add with the oil situation, because that's something that is very spoken about right now. It's concerned about Venezuelan oil going to USA. Venezuelan oil wasn't going to Venezuelans before what happened. It was going to Russia, to Iran, to China, to any other country. Venezuelan oil has not been for Venezuelans ever since maybe 1999 when the dictatorship started. So, and that's something very important to say, because it's the same with the sovereignty. People was very concerned about Venezuelan sovereignty, but there was no Venezuelan sovereignty before. We weren't a dictatorship. A dictatorship, it's a dictatorship. So I just wanted to put that on there.
I know you felt too about that, and I'm going to give you a chance in a second, but you had mentioned off air that very economic fact, right? It wasn't so much, and I want you to explain it better because you could do it better than me, it wasn't so much about getting the oil, it's about preventing our enemies from getting the oil. From a geopolitical, aside from the humanitarian, from a geopolitical move, what does that What does the situation in Venezuela now represent?
Yeah, well, the thing is that many people think that the times we are living now are the same and have the same times we were living like 5 years ago. The thing is that the world has changed dramatically, and especially after the invasion of Ukraine, the world has shifted, and the supposedly rule of law is no longer what it was, and that was very good for Maduro for some time, but now he's gone. The question is that, of course, the U.S. wants to push for more oil production in Venezuela, and for several reasons. One is because if you have more oil in the market, the prices will go down. That's one reason. And the other one is that countries like China, they have been buying Venezuelan oil at a huge discount, and using China.
Yeah.
China. They've been, buying oil because they use these boats that have been, taken recently, shadow cargo ships. The question is that China the world has become more a place like it used to be at the end of the 19th century or before, because you have, superpowers, and then you have areas of influence. And Russia thought that they could manage through the invasion of Ukraine, which was a huge mistake. And then China thinks it can manage Asia. And of course, the reaction to all that has been the Trump administration wants to have a greater control of the hemisphere. And I do think that this taking of Maduro can become the first step, if things are done well, a first step for the greater freedom in the
Because
hemisphere.
I totally agree, because people also forget that the Iranians are in Venezuela. It's not that they were, they are. Okay, the Chinese
Hezbollah.
are in Venezuela. Hezbollah is in Venezuela.
And you know, because
The Cubans.
you're Venezuelan, right? But
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that their farms were taken away, and they were given to Iranians. I mean, nobody has told me that. I saw it in Venezuela. So all these geopolitical forces that are against freedom and democracy in the world have been engaging in very black businesses, including drugs and drug trafficking. So it's not only because of the oil; it's because Venezuela is a strategic, geopolitical, geographically speaking.
Yeah, we have guerrilla movements from Colombia that they run in the border, and they determine who's going to be the mayor,
And they
who's
kidnap
goes through the border, who doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they partly rule that part of the country, and these are deadly guerrillas.
I want to
The
get
military, and the military in Venezuela, Chavez and Maduro, they destroyed the military completely.
Yeah.
Because all the hierarchy, the morale was destroyed. So it's not a surprise that the military didn't do anything when Maduro was extracted.
Yeah.
I want to get back to this because this is something we had talked about. I know Michael Reyes is in the audience, and this was a big topic that we would see as Latinos, and in your case Venezuelans, when the cameras would focus on the protesters in New York protesting against what Trump did. The reaction from the Venezuelan community was almost united in saying what? That these were not Venezuelans? Well, tell me about how you felt and what you saw when you would see these manifestations in the streets.
Well, they
against
were
what
not
happened.
Venezuelans, and they were not expressing how we felt.
Yeah.
And they didn't even speak Spanish.
And we know they were paid because they had no idea what they were talking about. It was just performing out there. I want to go back to this. Venezuela is a threat to the whole continent and maybe the whole world because there's so much information out there that people don't know, like having all these terrorists freely living in Venezuela, organizing themselves in Venezuela, and the international organized crime is there. So
I would venture to say that the last 35 minutes or so, we've been talking about things. I don't know if our security guard over there, at my buddy over there, hello, my friend, Eric, there it is. You've been listening? Oh, he's been keeping us safe. He keeps us safe, exactly. Maybe you don't want you listening. You're right. You're the only one that want it. But many of you listening out there maybe have learned something that they haven't heard, because that was one of the topics that I would hear all the time from the Venezuelan community, how frustrated they were when the people who were marching the streets were not Venezuelan, and according to you guys, many were paid or just didn't understand the situation, but they were constantly on the TV and they were the ones being interviewed. So that was something that you guys were talking about. All right, anybody have questions? Because I want audience, I want some participation. You could say something else.
I wanted to say that when you're having an opinion about something with so many lives in the middle, like Venezuelan situation, you have to be empathetic. It's really important to hear Venezuelans and their point of view as well. And I understand that many people that were in this protest, they were not there with a bad heart, with the idea of thinking that they were doing the wrong thing. But if you don't know about a situation, it's better to ask. It's better to talk with a Venezuelan friend and first check what's their point of view, because it's really hard when some other people come and try to explain to us as a Venezuelans how Venezuela works.
You know that
so it's important to be empathetic, guys, when we're having an opinion, and even more if it's a misinformed opinion. So
you know that there was a survey that was conducted 3 or 4 days ago in the whole Latin America. And surprisingly, because historically Latin America has been against U.S. intervention in the continent, but surprisingly, the majority of people in the different countries agreed.
Yes.
I saw that.
Yes.
That Maduro was extracted from Venezuela. So what this means is that, despite the fact that, people say that it was illegal, this extraction, I mean, people are opening their eyes and saying, finally,
and the context matter
things
as
are
well.
changing.
And the context matter as well. Everyone that is like, well, this was illegal and all of that. It was 27 years of dictatorship. We're not talking about something easy to go off it.
But what about
Alberto,
that it wasn't a president that was
Exactly,
from
it wasn't a
Venezuela?
president.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Because I don't want the people...
And we have some questions. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yes.
But I don't want people to think that we are naive,
Exactly,
and
yes.
that we are saying, oh, well, all the problems have been solved. No, we are worried. We are worried because the United States decided to choose the vice president of Maduro as an interim president. That cannot be tolerated for too long.
Yes.
Because as Leonardo said, we had an election on July 28th, 2024, where Edmundo González Urrutia and María Corina Machado won the elections. Though the Venezuelan people spoke. I mean, the Venezuelan people don't want the vice president of Maduro as president of Venezuela. No,
What do you think the odds are that in the next year she's still there?
Well, I really hope not, because according to the Venezuelan Constitution, an interim president has 6 months to call new elections. So we have 6 months.
Correct.
No, and
I was getting to that. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let me go to a question for the panel. Fred, you have a question, young man?
Right, that's good enough?
Yep.
Like this? All right.
All right.
First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to the whole Venezuela community. You guys are giving the Cuban community so much hope. Hopefully we are next, and our Nicaraguan family. We've all been going through it, so I want to give a shout out to you guys, and congratulations on getting that guy.
Thank you.
Maria, I love you. First and foremost, ever since 2021, anytime there was a Cuban protest, you were always in our corner, so I love you for that, girl. Thank you. And, hopefully you guys get what you're looking for, because this is well-deserved and you guys need it so much. first question, we talked about earlier on about, our favorite political figures having their 2 cents on Maduro's capture. Have you guys got any personal negative feedback on a personal level? Because I know there's been things going on about, Trump didn't do this for the right reason. He's only for the oil. Have you guys gotten anything like on a negative level that's been, negative?
Personal level, have you gotten any feedback?
Or it's been 100% supportive?
People been, no?
From I would say that not from Venezuelans. It would be more like from people from another countries,
Yeah.
like people from here. I've had in touch with many different people because I also teach music. So, and some of them have to ask me, like, how do I feel about the kidnapping? And that's the first thing that I like to clarify. It's not a kidnapping. He was a dictatorship. We are very glad that he is in jail. But it's always from other people that is not Venezuelan.
Yeah.
Because if you ask Venezuelans, it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to
Yeah.
find someone that wasn't happy with this situation.
And also remember that Maduro was offered no
Many
one,
ways
no
to get
two,
out,
no three,
yes.
4 times
Yeah.
a golden parachute, and he
Yeah.
didn't accept it.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah,
also
I think
to
that
remember.
a lot of people see this situation as the cause of something and not the consequence. This extraction was the consequence of many times where Maduro was given the opportunity to do the things right, to do the things
And
democratically, and
you
he
know-
didn't do it. This is a consequence, not a cause
And
of something.
like 3 or 4 days before that happened, he was in a rally there,
Yeah.
and he was dancing and saying, "Come and get me!
Yeah.
Come and get me!" So there was he thought
It was a provocation.
It was a bluff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He thought it was a bluff, and that it would never something like that would happen. And many of the people in the same regimes thought the same. Now they are thinking different.
So does this, to Michael's point, and I know well, it's not getting off topic because I think most of the audience doesn't connect it like we do, Latin Americans, especially Cubans and Venezuelans. Does this open the door for Cubans who've been waiting 70 years under a similar situation?
Oh, let's hope so.
Huh?
Yes,
Actually,
absolutely.
we're all
Because-
for it. I mean,
because
once we're free,
Cuba is
Cuba's
living,
next.
And I was in Cuba those days. Cuba is, because I was born in Cuba and then Venezuela and whatever. Cuba was supporting, after the Soviet Union collapsed,
Yep.
Venezuela came for help. And Cuba was supported with the Venezuelan oil and the Venezuelan money.
Communist Cuba. Communist Cuba.
Yes,
Yeah.
communist Cuba.
The dictatorship there. So, because Michael, I know you're Cuban, and I've heard this from the Cuban American who have said, you said it here, is there's hope now for Cuba. And again, most Americans view it as, we're going to get into another Vietnam, we're going to get into another intervention. But
It is a
this
hard
was to
situation.
offer a perspective of why these people, Cubans, Venezuelan, want to change, want a regime change. It's not about, it's a regime
This is not
change.
going
I
to
think
become
there
another
is a
Vietnam.
nationality that understands us.
I
and it's
know, but
Cuban.
they-
Venezuela is not going to come another Vietnam.
Right.
And you know why? Because we have proven that in 27 years of our lucha,
Struggle.
our struggle, that it has been for all peaceful means.
Yeah.
Peaceful means. We have never used guns. Only the dictatorship used gun against us.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I have one more. I have one more.
Go ahead.
My last question is, what can we do to support the community?
What?
Venezuela, what can we do? What can we do to support
What
the
can folks do to
folks to support the Venezuelan
watch this
community?
show and learn and want to help the Venezuelan community?
That
Maybe
is a
it's,
very
it's
good
giving you a
question.
different angle. How do you get involved? How would you suggest?
Actually-
I want everybody to talk to a Venezuelan, first of all.
Yes.
Because we all know that the media sometimes doesn't have, the straight, right information. So the Venezuelans that live here, I'm sure most of us are waiting for anyone to approach us and ask us, what is going on in Venezuela? How did you get to this? Well, first of all, the man that was extracted, the man that's in jail right now, was not Venezuelan's president. That would be the number one thing that we want to make sure that everybody knows. It's a criminal that deserves to be in jail.
Exactly.
And he was long due for that, because we have a lot of young people and people of all ages that were killed by him. So please approach a Venezuelan.
would
We're waiting
say-
for you. We really want to talk about it.
I would say thank you so much for that question, and I would say spread the right information and with verified cuentas, with verified accounts. And on my case, if we're talking about something that really needs more voice, is keep talking about the political prisoners, because I know that many of them has been released, but it has been around 150 or something, or even less, from more than 3,000. And Helicoide, now everyone knows about an Helicoide, and I'm glad, but there's La Tumba, there's Tocorón, there's El Rodeo, and those are the jails that has names. I come from a very small town in Venezuela. The political prisoners that were taken, my friends that were taken in 2017, they don't have names right now, and they're still disappear, or they still in jail. So if we're going to talk about Venezuela, we need to talk about the humans, the people that were there, that they were giving their lives in very peacefully protest, and yet nothing came, nothing happened.
Yeah, and write to your congressman. Write to your congressman and ask questions, because they talk and they don't know what they're talking about, some of them. Yeah. They should get information, call the Venezuelan community. We're more than willing to answer any questions. But I think that when our senators speak, they don't know exactly what the Venezuelan community is suffering. So write to them and ask questions to see if they can answer them.
Well, it's been a very entertaining, informative 45 minutes or so.
Wow.
So I do want to thank, because I don't want to forget, I want to thank not only our guests, obviously you guys made the show, but the people behind the scenes. So I want to thank our GBH crew, Hannah Eckert, who's awesome, Maddie Geyer, Olivia Quercio, Angelica Marrero, and Lauren Herbert, who is she's a wonderful reminder. She reminds me every week that I have to get stuff over. And I got to be careful how I see this. The producer, Sandra Lopez Burke. Let's call her my sister. My sister. I won't say older or younger sister, but just my sister. So that's a lot of the folks that work behind this and help put the show together. Again, shout out to the cafe here, Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you, Nari.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Leonardo. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the audience, and
Thank
thank you everything.
you.
And we'll see you next month here
Thank
on
you.
Amplifies with Alberto Vasallo from the Boston Public Library. Have a great one.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much.
Thank
you.
you.